You wake to the smell of incense cutting through something older, something that has soaked into the rockcrete beneath you. It's the smell of old blood, not fresh, not metallic, but aged into the stone like a stain that has become part of the architecture itself. Your eyes open to darkness broken only by a thin strip of yellow light beneath an iron door. The cold is immediate, seeping through your thin clothing, and you realize your wrists are raw. The chains binding them to the wall have already worn through the top layers of skin during sleep. You don't remember falling asleep. You don't remember much of anything beyond the question. The question. It plays in your mind on an endless loop, so innocent, so mundane. 3 days ago, or was it 4? You asked a tech priest why he blessed a water reclamation pump before repairing it. A simple question, a child's curiosity. You weren't challenging the omnissiah. You weren't questioning the emperor's divine will. You just wanted to understand. You worked in that facility for 15 years. You'd seen the ritual performed hundreds of times, and one day you simply asked. The tech priest had stopped mid-prayer. His mechadendrites had frozen in place, and you remember thinking for just a moment that he looked sad behind those red augmetic lenses. Then he'd pressed a button on his wrist console. Within minutes, the Arbites arrived. That was 4 days ago. 4 days in transit, in holding cells, in corridors that all looked the same. And now you're here, waking to the smell of old blood, listening to a sound that hasn't stopped since they brought you to this place. Screaming. It's distant, muffled by thick walls and iron doors, but it's been constant for how long? Hours. You've tried to sleep through it to convince yourself it's something else. Machinery, air circulation systems, the hive's endless industrial symphony. But you know, deep in that animal part of your brain that recognizes the sound of human suffering, you know. The door opens without warning. Light floods in, blinding after the darkness, and you instinctively pull back against the wall, chains rattling. 2 Arbites enter, their carapace armor reflecting the harsh lumens, faces hidden behind helmets that reduce them to symbols rather than people. One carries a data slate. The other stands by the door, shock maul ready, though you haven't moved beyond that initial flinch. The one with the data slate reads in a voice completely devoid of emotion, the bureaucratic monotone of someone who has done this 1,000 times before. Detainee 7738. Designation, Magnus Vrell. Age, 43 standard years. Occupation, water reclamation technician, 3rd class. Crime, unauthorized theological inquiry. Unauthorized questioning of approved liturgical procedures. Demonstration of prohibited curiosity regarding sacred mysteries. Possible ideological contamination. Possible vectors of heretical thought. The words wash over you. You want to protest, to explain that it was just a question, that you've been a loyal servant of the emperor your entire life, that there's been a mistake. But the Arbite continues, and the next words stop your breath entirely. Sentence, public mortification through integumentary removal followed by exhibition. Date of execution, tomorrow, 14th hour. Sentence to be carried out in Penitence Square Gamma 7 before assembled witnesses. May the emperor have mercy upon your soul. Integumentary removal. Your mind stutters over the words. Integumentary, that means skin, doesn't it? Some distant memory from childhood education, from medici classes on hygiene and workplace injuries. Integumentary system. The skin, the body's largest organ. Removal. They're going to remove your... No. The word comes out as barely a whisper. No, I just asked a question, I didn't. Sentence has been passed, the Arbite says, still in that same emotionless voice. Confession is irrelevant, contrition is irrelevant. The law is absolute, the law is just. Ave Imperator. They leave. The door closes. Darkness returns, but your eyes are adjusted now, and you can see the small cell in the ambient light from beneath the door. Rockcrete walls, a waste hole in the corner. Chains bolted into the wall, old iron stained with rust that might not be rust at all. And on the wall opposite you, scratched into the stone by desperate fingernails or improvised tools, dozens, no, hundreds of messages. Emperor, protect me. Tell Marissa I'm sorry. It didn't hurt as bad as I thought it would. This one is crossed out, and beneath it, liar. I am loyal, I am faithful, I am. The message ends incomplete. You read them all. You have nothing else to do. You have 31 hours left to live, and you spend the first hour reading the last words of the people who were here before you. Your predecessors in this cell, this waiting room for horror. Some begged the emperor for salvation. Some professed their loyalty to the end. Some descended into incoherence, scratch marks becoming deeper, more frantic carving messages that devolve into meaningless repetition of the word no over and over until the writer either gave up or was taken away. There's a fresher message near the bottom, the scratches not yet dulled by time. You have 31 hours left. Your body doesn't know this yet, but it will. You stare at those words. You stare at them until they stop being letters and become just shapes, lines carved into stone. Time becomes strange. You can't tell if minutes or hours are passing. The screaming in the distance continues, sometimes louder, sometimes softer, but never stopping. You realize with a clarity that feels like ice water in your veins that tomorrow that screaming will be yours. The door opens again, and this time it's not Arbite's. A priest enters, robed in crimson and black, the aquila emblazoned across his chest in gold that catches the light. He's old, this priest, his face lined with age and bearing the slight tremor of someone in their 7th or 8th decade. He carries with him the smell of incense. Ah, that's where the smell in your cell comes from, you realize. Previous visits, previous condemned. My child, he says, and his voice is gentle, grandfatherly. He sits on the floor beside you, apparently unconcerned with the dirt and the blood smell and the horror of this place. I am Father Matthias. I have come to prepare your soul for the journey ahead. You want to scream at him. You want to rage against the injustice of it all, to make him understand that you're not a heretic, not a traitor, just someone who asked a question. But instead, you hear yourself say, why? The priest smiles. It's a kind smile that somehow makes it worse. You have been given a great gift, he says, a rare blessing, though I know you cannot see it now. Through your suffering, you will glorify the emperor. Through your pain, you will teach 10,000 others the value of faithful obedience. Your agony will prevent countless others from straying down the path of questioning, of doubt, of heresy. He reaches out and places a withered hand on your shoulder. The touch is gentle, paternal. The Imperium doesn't kill you to punish you, Father Matthias continues. It kills you to teach others. Your death has purpose. Your pain has meaning. You should feel honored, my child. Most people die in obscurity, their lives touching only a handful of others. But you, tomorrow, 10,000 will watch you ascend. Hundreds of thousands will see the pick casts. Millions will hear the story. Your moment of ultimate service to the emperor will echo across this entire hive world. Can you imagine? Can you grasp the magnitude of the gift you've been given? You stare at him, he's completely sincere. There's no malice in his eyes, no cruelty. He truly believes every word he's saying. He truly thinks you should be grateful. I don't want this gift, you whisper. None do, Father Matthias says sadly. But the greatest martyrs never seek martyrdom. It is thrust upon them, and in accepting it with faith, they are elevated. Resist, and you die a traitor's death, remembered only as a lesson in failure. Accept, and you die a penitent, your soul perhaps saved despite your transgression. The choice, such as it is, remains yours. He stays for an hour. He prays over you, anointing your forehead with sacred oils. He tells you stories of other penitents, others who walked this path before you. He makes it sound almost beautiful, almost noble. When he leaves, you find yourself almost believing him. Almost. Then the screaming from the distance crescendos into something beyond human vocalization, something that sounds like an animal dying, and the illusion shatters. They come for you before dawn. Not Arbites this time, but servitors, 3 of them, humanoid in shape but clearly more machine than man. They move with mechanical efficiency, unlocking your chains from the wall and attaching them instead to tethers they hold in their augmetic hands. They don't speak. They don't even look at you. You're not a person to them. You're just cargo to be transported. But before they take you away, They take you to another room. This one is tiled in white, harsh lumens reflecting off every surface until you have to squint against the brightness. In the center of the room is a shallow pool filled with steaming water, and beside it stands a medici servitor, its chest cavity open to reveal chemical dispensers and medical instruments. Subject will bathe. One of the servitors intones in a voice like grinding metal. Subject will be cleansed. Subject must be hygienic for exhibition. The realization hits you like a physical blow. They want you clean. They're going to scrub you, prepare you, make you presentable for the crowd. This isn't about you at all, it's about them. About the spectacle. About making sure your skin is clean and visible when they peel it away in front of thousands of witnesses. You want to resist. You want to refuse to maintain some last shred of dignity, some final act of defiance. But the servitors don't give you a choice. They strip you efficiently, mechanically, and guide you into the water. It's hot, almost scalding, and then the medici servitor begins its work. It scrubs you with brushes that feel like they're taking off the top layer of skin. It applies chemical solutions that burn and tingle. It inspects every inch of your body with cold, augmetic precision, scanning for what? Diseases, injuries. They need you healthy, you realize. They need you physically fit enough to survive what's coming. They need your body strong enough to endure maximum suffering before it finally gives out. The medici servitor injects something into your arm, vitamins, stimulants, coagulants, preparing your body, optimizing it, making sure you won't bleed out too quickly, won't go into shock too fast, won't escape into the mercy of unconsciousness when the pain begins. After the bath, they dress you in a gray robe. It's made of thin material that tears easily. You can tell just by touching it. Every aspect of this garment has been designed for one purpose, to be removed quickly and dramatically when the time comes. Even your clothing is part of the theater. Back in your cell, you're not alone. You can hear voices from the adjacent cells now, other condemned, other penitents waiting their turn. Through the thin walls, you hear a woman sobbing, a man praying in a language you don't recognize, someone else laughing, a sound hovering on the edge of madness. First time. A voice comes from your left, muffled by the wall but still audible, male, older, with the rough accent of the underhive. What? You manage. First time being executed, the voice clarifies, and there's a bitter humor in it. Stupid question, I know. Can't really have a second time, can you? I meant, first time being condemned. Some of us have been waiting here for days, watching others go up, knowing we're next. What did you do? You ask, then immediately feel foolish. What does it matter? Stole water rations, the voice says. My daughter was sick, needed extra hydration. I took 3 liters from the communal reservoir. 3 liters. They're going to flay me for 3 liters of recycled piss water. He laughs again, that same brittle sound. You. I asked a question, you say. Silence. Then, throne, that's all, just asked a question. Just asked a question. What was it, the question? You tell him about the tech priest, about the blessing of the water pump, about simple curiosity. When you finish, there's a long pause. Well, the voice finally says, at least you'll die knowing you weren't stupid. You weren't greedy. You were just curious. That's something, right? That's almost noble. I don't feel noble, you say. I feel terrified. Yeah, the voice agrees. Yeah, me too. Hey, you want to know the worst part? The absolute worst part about all of this. What? Knowing that tomorrow someone else will be in this cell. Someone else will be having this exact conversation. And the day after that, someone else. And the day after that. Forever. Until the hive crumbles or the Imperium falls. We're not special. We're not even unusual. We're just Tuesday. You have no response to that. What response could there be? They bring you to another room. This one is different, not a cell, not a bathing chamber, but something that looks almost like a medical bay. There are examination tables, monitoring equipment, and standing in the center of it all, a robed figure whose face is hidden behind a smooth white mask. I am your executioner, the figure says, voice neither male nor female, filtered through the mask into something neutral and professional. I have performed this service for the Imperium for 40 standard years. I will be the instrument through which your sentence is carried out. You can't speak, can't move, can only stare at this person whose life's work is ending lives in the most agonizing way possible. You have questions, the executioner says, and somehow you know this isn't an invitation, it's a statement of fact. Everyone does. I will answer some of them. It helps sometimes to understand. The executioner gestures to an array of instruments laid out on a steel tray. Thin knives that shimmer in the light, monomolecular edges, you realize, blades that could slice through flesh like it was smoke, suspension hooks, medical syringes filled with clear liquid. The process will begin at your extremities and work inward, the executioner explains in that same clinical, almost kind tone. This maximizes the duration of consciousness. I am required to keep you aware for as long as medically possible. That is the law. That is the purpose. The stimulants will help with that. They'll keep you from slipping into shock, keep your heart rate stable, keep your mind present. How long you manage to croak out, that depends on many factors: your health, your body's stress response, how your cardiovascular system handles the trauma. On average, subjects remain conscious for 43 minutes, some more, some less. The record is 2 hours and 17 minutes, though we don't. The executioner pauses, as if reconsidering the appropriateness of the statement. We don't aim for records. We aim for compliance with sentencing guidelines. The executioner approaches you and you flinch, but they only offer you a cup of water. Drink, they say. You'll want to be hydrated, it helps with everything. You take the cup with shaking hands. The water is cold, clean, better than anything you'd get in your HAB unit. They're giving you the best water you've tasted in years, and you're drinking it in preparation for your own flaying. The absurdity of it almost makes you laugh. Why do you do this? You ask. How can you? How can anyone? Because someone must, the executioner replies simply. Because the alternative is chaos. The alternative is a galaxy that devours us all. I don't enjoy this work, I don't hate it either. It simply is what must be done, and I do it with as much skill and precision as I can muster. That is the only mercy I can offer: competence, expertise. I will not make mistakes. I will not prolong your suffering unnecessarily. I will execute your sentence exactly as prescribed, no more and no less. They pause, then add almost gently, I've done this 6,742 times. You will be 6,743, and tomorrow there will be 6,744. The work continues. The Imperium endures. They take you to a holding area beneath the platform. You can hear everything now, not distant anymore, but directly above you. Voices, thousands of voices. The crowd is already gathering, has been gathering for hours. This is an event. This is entertainment. You're not alone in the holding area. There are 12 others here, all in the same gray robes, all with the same hollow eyes. The woman who was sobbing, the man who stole water. Others you haven't heard, don't know, will never know. You're chained together in a line like animals being led to slaughter, which, you suppose, is exactly what you are. Through the bars of the holding cage, you can see the executioners preparing. There are several of them. This isn't a one-person operation. They're checking equipment, testing the suspension frames, consulting with medici servitors about optimal sequencing. It's choreographed, rehearsed. They've done this so many times that it's become routine. Above, a voice booms through vox amplifiers. Citizens of Hive Primus, faithful servants of the God Emperor. Today we gather to witness the Emperor's justice made manifest. Today we cleanse corruption. Today we reinforce the strength of our devotion through the punishment of those who strayed from the path. The crowd roars approval, not quite cheering, that would be too joyful, but a sound of satisfaction, of collective anticipation. You realize with a sinking horror that they're excited. These are people who live gray, grinding lives of endless labor and deprivation, and this is their spectacle. This is their circus. First to ascend, the voice continues, Magnus Vrell, water reclamation technician. Crime, unauthorized theological inquiry. By his questioning, he has shown the seed of doubt. By his doubt, he threatens us all. Let his punishment be a lesson. Let his suffering be a warning. Your name, they said your name. Out of all the condemned, they're starting with you. You're going first. The servitors unlock your chains from the main line and attach them to individual tethers. They're pulling you toward the stairs that lead up to the platform. You try to resist, but your legs won't cooperate. Your body has betrayed you, shutting down in the face of overwhelming terror. They drag you up the stairs, toward the light, toward the roar of the crowd, toward everything waiting at the top. The last thing you think before you emerge into the light is the message scratched on your cell wall. You have 31 hours left. Your body doesn't know this yet, but it will. Your body knows now. But before we continue with what happens to Magnus Vrell on that platform, before we follow him into his final moments, we need to understand something crucial. Why? Why does the Imperium choose this particular method of execution? Why flaying specifically? Why public? Why this elaborate theater of horror? The answer isn't simple cruelty. The Imperium is many things, but random it is not. Every action, every law, every punishment has been calculated, refined, and optimized over 10,000 years. Public flaying isn't an aberration of imperial justice. It is imperial justice, functioning exactly as designed. Let's pull back. Let's zoom out from Magnus Vrell and his personal nightmare to understand the system that created it. In our world, we like to think of justice systems as having certain goals: rehabilitation, protection of society, proportional punishment, perhaps even redemption. We debate the ethics of the death penalty. We argue about prison reform. We believe on some level that justice should be, well, just. The Imperium has no such illusions. Imperial justice exists for three purposes and three purposes only. First, punishment. The guilty must suffer proportionally to the threat their actions posed, not to them as individuals but to the social order. Second, example. The punishment must be visible, memorable, traumatic enough that millions who witness it will never consider the same transgression. Third, and perhaps most honestly, entertainment. Yes, entertainment. The Adeptus Arbites understand something that authoritarian regimes throughout human history have understood. A populace that is entertained by watching others suffer is a populace that will not turn that suffering toward the state itself. Give them bread and circuses, the ancient Terran saying goes. The Imperium often struggles with the bread, but it never fails to provide the circuses. Public executions serve the dual purpose of reinforcing state power while simultaneously releasing social pressure. The crowds that gather in penitent squares aren't just learning lessons about obedience, though they are learning that. They're also experiencing a brief respite from their own suffering by witnessing suffering greater than their own. For a few hours, they're not the victims, they're the audience. That psychological reprieve is valuable to people whose lives are otherwise unending grinding misery. The ecclesiarchy, the Imperium's religious authority, provides the theological justification. According to the doctrines of the imperial creed, suffering purifies. Pain cleanses corruption. Public mortification allows the condemned to potentially save their immortal soul through agonizing penance. The logic is circular but perfect. If you die screaming in torment, your screams are prayers. Your pain is worship. Your flaying glorifies the emperor. There are texts, apocryphal perhaps, but widely circulated in ecclesiarchy seminary worlds, that outline the theology of corrective mortification. The treatise on righteous punishment describes pain as the fire that burns away heresy and public execution, as the mirror in which the faithful see their own potential fall and turn away from the precipice. In other words, we hurt you so others won't become you. It's not cruelty, it's mathematics. It's social engineering with flesh and blood. The Imperium didn't invent flaying. Humanity has been skinning each other alive for as long as we've had the tools and the imagination to do so. The ancient Aztecs of Terra practiced a ritual called Zyptoduk, where captives were flayed, and their skins worn by priests to represent death and rebirth. The Assyrians documented flaying their enemies and displaying the skins on city walls as warnings. In medieval Europe, Execution by flaying was reserved for particularly heinous crimes: counterfeiting, heresy, rebellion against rightful authority. The common thread: flaying was never just execution. It was statement, it was symbol. It was the complete dehumanization of the condemned, the literal removal of their individuality, their identity, their very skin. The Imperium inherited these traditions, studied them, and did what the Imperium does best: it industrialized them. Consider the purge of Vandy's hive in M39. Heretical elements exact nature classified had spread through the lower hive levels. Rather than simple execution, the planetary governor ordered mass flaying. 3,000 individuals over the course of a week. The executions were broadcast on every pick screen in the hive. Work stopped. Attendance was mandatory. For 7 days, every citizen of Vandy's hive watched people being skinned alive. The heresy didn't spread. Not there. Not for 300 years afterward. Or the penitent procession of St. Morin's World, where public flayings became so central to the local culture that they evolved into a holy festival. Once per year, condemned prisoners are paraded through the streets, flayed in sequence, their suffering turned into a day of religious observance. Children are given the day off from labor school to attend. Vendors sell fried fungus cakes and recycled protein sticks. Families make a day of it. The Imperium doesn't condemn this. The Imperium celebrates it as an example of proper civic dedication. Every major hive world in the Imperium has them, penitent squares. You can recognize them from orbit sometimes. Large open spaces in the densely packed urban sprawl, unusual in cities where every square meter is precious. They're architectural masterpieces in their way. The platforms are raised 3 meters above ground level, angled slightly toward the audience for optimal viewing. The suspension frames are modular, allowing for rapid setup and breakdown. Efficiency is important when you're processing dozens of executions per day. The rockcrete beneath is treated with special sealants that prevent blood from permanently staining, though of course, it never quite works, and the stone is always darker in penitent squares than anywhere else in the hive. The audio systems are perhaps the most sophisticated element. Vox amplifiers positioned at strategic intervals ensure that every scream, every plea, every involuntary vocalization of agony reaches every corner of the square. Sound engineers. Yes, that's actually a specialization in some hives. Tune the acoustics to maximize emotional impact. The screams need to be loud enough to be heard, but not so distorted that they lose their human quality. The crowd needs to understand that what they're hearing is a person, because that's where the fear comes from. Pick casters broadcast the proceedings to adjacent districts. Grainy hololithic displays, often centuries old and barely functional, still manage to convey the essential images. The condemned, the instruments, the process. In some hives, the executions are recorded and replayed during slow work periods, educational materials for new citizens or anyone whose dedication might be wavering. The maintenance servitors are perhaps the most disturbing element. They're programmed with specific routines. Clean the platform between executions, dispose of remains efficiently, prepare for next subject. They do this work with perfect mechanical precision, moving through pools of blood and scattered tissue with the same emotionless efficiency they'd use to clean any other industrial site. Because that's what penitent squares are: industrial sites, factories that produce fear. The platforms themselves bear the marks of their use. Gouges where suspension hooks have been driven into the rockcrete thousands of times, grooves worn smooth by chains, and always that stain that never quite washes away, no matter how much industrial solvent the servitors apply. The stone remembers. The rockcrete has absorbed so much blood, so much suffering, that it's become part of the material itself. On some worlds, particularly old ones that have been part of the Imperium for millennia, there are penitent squares that have been in continuous use for 3,000 years or more. 3,000 years of executions, dozens per day, sometimes hundreds during purges or periods of civil unrest. The mathematics become incomprehensible. Millions of people have died on those stones. Their blood is in the foundation. Their screams are in the acoustic memory of those walls. And tomorrow there will be more. But why does it work? Why do people accept this? Why do millions of imperial citizens gather to watch their fellow humans being flayed alive, and then go home and eat dinner and sleep and wake up and do it again? The answer is simultaneously simple and horrifying, because it's normal. Normalization is humanity's most powerful survival mechanism and our most dangerous vulnerability. We can become accustomed to anything, given enough time and repetition. Atrocities, if repeated enough, become routine. Horror, if constant enough, becomes background noise. For the average imperial citizen, public flayings are just part of life. They're not special. They're not unusual. They're just Tuesday. The execution square is down the street, next to the protein dispensary and the habitation blocks. You walk past it on your way to work. You see the blood stains. You smell the lingering scent of death. And eventually you stop noticing. When executions are announced, people attend for various reasons. Some are zealots, true believers who see the suffering of heretics and criminals as a form of worship, an affirmation of their own righteousness. These are the ones in the front rows, the ones who chant prayers during the flaying, who genuinely believe they're participating in something holy. Others attend because attendance is often mandatory. Their work shifts are adjusted. Their supervisors note who shows up and who doesn't. In a society where suspicion is dangerous, absence from a public execution raises questions. Why didn't they attend? What are they hiding? Are they sympathetic to the condemned? Many attend out of simple curiosity, that same dark fascination that draws humans to witness suffering across all cultures and times. They won't admit it, even to themselves, but there's a primal part of the human psyche that is drawn to violence, to death, to the spectacle of destruction. The Imperium understands this and exploits it ruthlessly. And then there are those who attend because they're relieved. Relieved it's not them. Relieved their own minor transgressions haven't been noticed. Relieved that someone else is suffering, which means they're safe, at least for now. Every execution reinforces a simple message. Obey and this won't happen to you. Deviate and you'll be next on that platform. It's insidious because it's effective. Every person in that crowd learns the lesson on multiple levels simultaneously. Consciously, don't commit crimes. Subconsciously, don't question, don't deviate, don't be noticed. Even deeper, your suffering doesn't matter, your life has no inherent value, you exist only to serve the Imperium. Parents bring their children. This is perhaps the most disturbing aspect. 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, held on their parents' shoulders for a better view as a human being is systematically destroyed. The parents explain in simple terms. They were bad. The Emperor is punishing them. This is what happens when you don't obey. These children will grow up with this embedded in their psychological development. Fear of authority, fear of deviation, fear of curiosity. These will be as fundamental to their personality as their own names. And when they have children, they'll bring them to witness executions too. The cycle perpetuates itself. Generation after generation, each one a little more normalized to horror, a little more accepting of brutality, a little more efficiently conditioned to obedience. There are food vendors. Think about that. Food vendors at public flayings. Fried fungus cakes, recycled protein sticks, algae drinks served in disposable containers. People eat while watching other people being skinned alive. They chat with their neighbors. They comment on the execution technique, debate whether this executioner is better than the last one, speculate about what the condemned did to deserve their fate. Some hives have developed entire economies around public executions. Vendors who specialize in execution day merchandise. Pick capture services where you can purchase a hololithic image of yourself with the execution platform in the background. Memorabilia sellers offering pieces of chain supposedly used in famous executions, almost certainly fake, but people buy them anyway. In the Imperium, suffering is not just punishment, it's infrastructure, it's economy, it's culture. It's so deeply woven into the fabric of daily life that to remove it would be to unravel society itself. And here's the most disturbing part. It works. Societies with regular public executions have measurably lower rates of crime, heresy, and civil unrest. The fear is real. The compliance it produces is real. From a purely utilitarian standpoint, from the perspective of maintaining order across 1,000,000 worlds with quadrillions of human inhabitants, public flaying is effective. The Imperium has calculated exactly how much suffering is required to prevent rebellion. It has optimized the frequency of executions, the visibility of punishment, the types of torture applied to different categories of crime. This isn't random brutality. This is social engineering refined over 10,000 years. One flaying prevents 10,000 questions. One public execution ensures compliance from 10 million witnesses. The mathematics are grotesque, but they're mathematics nonetheless. In the Imperium, mercy is heresy. Let that sink in for a moment. To show mercy, to suggest that perhaps the punishment is too severe, perhaps the crime didn't warrant this response, perhaps there should be proportionality between transgression and consequence, is to commit heresy yourself. Why? Because mercy implies the punishment was unjust. Mercy implies the Imperium made a mistake. And the Imperium cannot make mistakes because the Imperium is the extension of the Emperor's will, and the Emperor is divine and therefore infallible. It's a perfect logical trap. Question the justice of any punishment and you're questioning the Emperor himself. And that, of course, is heresy, which is punished by exactly the same system you just questioned. The circle is closed. The system is self-reinforcing. Every attempted critique becomes proof of the need for the system. Every expression of doubt becomes evidence justifying further brutality. This is the genius, if we can call it that, of imperial justice. It's not designed to be just in any meaningful sense we would recognize. It's designed to be absolute, unquestionable, eternal. 1,000,000 worlds, each with billions of inhabitants. Across the Imperium at any given moment, thousands of executions are occurring. Some are quick bullet to the back of the head, efficient disposal. Some are slow, starvation cages, exposure to vacuum, biological dissolution. And some are theatrical, flaying, burning, dismemberment, crucifixion. The method matches the message. Theft might earn you a quick death. It's a practical crime deserving practical punishment. But questioning, doubt, curiosity, these threaten the very foundation of imperial control. These require punishment that is memorable, traumatic, unforgettable. Magnus Vrell asked why a machine was blessed. A simple question, a nothing question. But that question, if left unanswered, if allowed to spread, could lead to doubt about the machine cult, which could lead to doubt about the Omnissiah, which could lead to doubt about the Emperor, which could lead to everything falling apart, or so the Imperium believes. And in a galaxy where chaos gods are real, where thoughts can literally tear holes in reality, where faith is the only thing standing between humanity and extinction, maybe the Imperium is right to be terrified of questions. That's the horrifying part. Maybe they're right. Maybe in a universe this hostile, this fundamentally inimical to human existence, this level of authoritarian control is the only thing that works. Maybe mercy is a luxury humanity can't afford. Maybe questions are too dangerous to be allowed. Or maybe the Imperium has become so committed to its own mythology that it can no longer distinguish between necessary survival measures and systematic brutality. Maybe the cure has become worse than the disease. Maybe humanity is being preserved in a form that isn't worth preserving. But no one can ask that question, because asking that question means you're next on the platform, next in line for the flaying fields, next to have your skin peeled away in front of 10,000 witnesses who will learn from your suffering never to ask questions themselves. The system perpetuates itself. The fear creates compliance. The compliance justifies the system. The system creates more fear, forever, unchanging, eternal. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But before war, there is control. And control requires fear. And fear requires suffering. And suffering requires people like Magnus Vrell, whose only crime was curiosity, whose only transgression was wanting to understand. Your execution will be forgotten before your body cools. 1,000,000 worlds, 1 trillion executions. Yours is just one among numberless billions. But for you, in your moment, it's everything. It's your entire universe. It's every second of agony stretched into eternity. The Imperium doesn't care about your suffering. The Imperium cares about what your suffering teaches everyone else. And the lesson is always the same: obey. Never question, never doubt, never ask why. The light hits you like a physical blow. After hours in darkness, the harsh glare of hive primus's artificial sun lumens is blinding. You instinctively try to shield your eyes, but your hands are chained, and all you manage is an awkward flinch that causes the servitors dragging you to adjust their grip. And then you hear it. The crowd, it's not quite cheering. That would imply joy, celebration, enthusiasm. This sound is something else entirely. It's a low, hungry murmur, the collective vocalization of 10,000 people who have been waiting for something to happen, and now something is happening and they're here to witness it. There's anticipation in that sound. Expectation. Almost. Need. Your vision adjusts and you see them. Packed into penitence square Gamma 7 like corpse starch in a processing vat, pressed shoulder to shoulder, filling every available space. The square is larger than you imagined. You've seen it from a distance before, passed by it on transit tubes, but you've never been inside it. Never seen it from this perspective. The platform is 3 meters above the crowd level, rockcrete stained so dark it's almost black. The suspension frames stand ready, 5 of them in a row like obscene sculptures. At the edges of your vision, you can see pickcaster units, their lenses pointed at the platform, recording everything for broadcast to the adjacent districts. But what draws your eye, what you can't look away from, is the crowd itself. The faces. Thousands of them. You search desperately for sympathy, for one expression of horror, one person who looks as disturbed by this as you feel. But what you see is nothing. Not hostility, not hatred, just passive observation. These people aren't your enemies. They're not here because they hate you personally. They're here because this is what people do. This is Tuesday in the Imperium. Citizens. A voice booms through the vox amplifiers and you see now the source, a priest on a raised pulpit to the side of the execution platform. Father Matthias, the same one who visited your cell. We gather today in sacred purpose, to witness the Emperor's justice, to see corruption purged, to learn through the suffering of the unworthy the value of our own faith and obedience. The crowd makes that sound again, that low murmur of agreement and anticipation. You see a child, couldn't be more than 6 or 7 years old, sitting on their father's shoulders for a better view. The child is eating something, a fried fungus cake, grease glistening on their small fingers. They're watching you with the same curious detachment they'd give to any unusual sight. An Ogren laborer, a servoskull, a public flaying. All equally interesting, all equally meaningless. Your mind tries to escape to memory, to anywhere but here. You remember the transport that brought you here from the holding facility. A Chimera APC, retrofitted specifically for prisoner transport. Barred windows, reinforced compartments, seats designed to lock prisoners in place during transit. You weren't alone. 12 of you, chained in a line, each guilty of crimes ranging from the mundane to the incomprehensible. The woman next to you had been convicted of prohibited reproduction, having a 3rd child without authorization. The man across from you had stolen bolt rounds from the munitorium facility where he worked. A younger man, couldn't have been more than 20, had been caught with unauthorized literature, specifically a book of pre-imperial poetry from ancient Terra. They were going to flay him alive for poetry. You tried to speak to them during the transport, to form some kind of connection. Some last shred of human solidarity in the face of shared doom. But most couldn't speak. Some were catatonic, eyes vacant, minds already fled from bodies that would soon be destroyed. One woman prayed continuously, a whispered mantra to the Emperor that never paused even for breath. Another laughed quietly to himself, a sound that made your skin crawl worse than the silence. Through the barred windows, you'd watch the hive pass by. Citizens going about their daily business, workers trudging to shifts, vendors selling food, children playing in the narrow spaces between hab blocks, normal life continuing indifferent to your fate. The chimera passed a checkpoint where an Arbeitsofficer glanced at the vehicle, recognized it for what it was, and turned away without interest. You are being transported to your death, and no one even looks twice. Then the crowd came into view. Even from blocks away, you could see them gathering, filing into Penitence Square with the resigned patience of people queuing for ration distribution. This was routine for them. The morning shift had been adjusted to allow attendance. Their supervisors had noted their presence. Tomorrow they'd return to work, and the execution they witnessed would be just another memory filed away with all the others. A child had pointed at your transport as it passed. "Look, Mama, the bad people." And the mother had replied, exactly as you'd somehow known she would. "That's right, dear. The Emperor is making them good again." Making you good by skinning you alive, in front of 10,000 witnesses, while your executioner ensures you remain conscious for as long as medically possible. This is how the Imperium makes you good. Before bringing you to the platform, they kept you in a holding cage directly beneath it. The cage is small, barely large enough for all 12 condemned to stand, and the bars are old iron, rusted with age and use. Above, you can hear everything. Footsteps, the executioners moving into position, the priest's booming voice delivering his sermon about justice and faith and the Emperor's divine will, the maintenance servitors performing final equipment checks, and underneath it all, continuous and impossible to escape, the murmur of the crowd. But there's another sound. Something happening above, something you can't see but can certainly hear. An execution is already in progress. Someone who was brought here before you, who's been waiting longer, who drew the first position in today's schedule. The screaming filters down through the platform structure. It's not constant, it comes in waves, punctuated by gaps that are somehow worse than the sound itself. What's happening during those gaps? Has the condemned passed out? Has the executioner paused to administer more stimulants? Are they dying, finally, mercifully? One of the other prisoners in the cage vomits. The smell is sharp in the confined space, but no one complains. What would be the point? A servitor descends the stairs carrying something. You don't want to look, but you can't help yourself. It's a body, what's left of one. The skin has been completely removed, leaving only red muscle and white bone. The face is gone, just a skull with staring eyes and exposed teeth locked in a final grimace. This was a person an hour ago, had thoughts, memories, people they loved. Now they're just waste to be disposed of. The servitor carries the corpse past your cage without pausing, heading toward the disposal chutes where bodies are rendered down into component chemicals. Bones ground to calcium supplement, flesh processed into protein paste, nothing wasted. The Imperium is efficient even in death. Next batch, another servitor announces in its grinding mechanical voice. Prepare for ascension. They bring the executioner down to meet you before you ascend. You recognize them from earlier, from the preparation chamber, the smooth white mask, the robes that hide their body completely, making them into a symbol rather than a person. Magnus Vrell, they say, and your name sounds strange in that filtered voice. You will be first today. This is an honor. The crowd is fresh, attentive. Their focus will be entirely on you. An honor. They call it an honor. I want you to know, the executioner continues, and there's something in their voice that might be kindness, or might be the closest approximation of kindness someone can manage after 40 years of this work, that I will be as skilled as possible. I will not deviate from prescribed procedure, but within those guidelines I will make this as efficient as my experience allows. You want to scream at them. You want to ask how they can do this, how they can sleep at night, how they maintain any shred of humanity while performing this monstrous work. But instead, you hear yourself say, "Thank you." The absurdity of it almost breaks you. You're thanking your executioner for promising to be competent while they flay you alive. You're expressing gratitude for their professional expertise in torture. The executioner reaches into their robes and produces a small canteen. "Water," they say. "Drink. You'll want to be hydrated." The water is cold, clean. You drink it all. They're right. You're desperately thirsty, though you hadn't even noticed until the water touched your lips. Your body is preparing itself, trying to optimize for survival even though survival is no longer possible. Every biological system you possess is activating, flooding you with adrenaline and cortisol and endorphins, readying you for fight or flight. But you can't fight, and you can't flee. All that preparation, all those chemical responses honed by millions of years of evolution are completely useless. Your body is preparing you to survive something unsurvivable. I've done this 6,742 times, the executioner says quietly. Tomorrow there will be 6,744. The work continues. The Imperium endures. Then they turn and ascend the stairs, and you realize that was their version of comfort, their attempt at making this easier for you, reminding you that you're not special, not unique, just another number in an endless sequence, one among billions. Somehow it does help, slightly. If this has happened 6,000 times before, if it will happen 6,000 times after, if your suffering is just a tiny droplet in an ocean of suffering, then maybe it doesn't matter as much. Maybe you can endure it because others have endured it. Or maybe that's just your mind desperately grasping for any framework that makes this bearable. Magnus Vrell, ascend. The servitors unlock your chains from the holding cage and attach them to individual tethers. They pull, and your legs move automatically, carrying you up the stairs even as every instinct in your body screams to resist, to fight, to do anything other than climb toward your own death. 15 stairs. You count each one. It's something to focus on besides the roaring in your ears, the pounding of your heart, the way your vision seems to be narrowing to a tunnel. 15 stairs between the cage and the platform. 15 stairs between alive and dead. You emerge onto the platform and the crowds murmur crescendos into something louder. Not cheering, but acknowledgement. The main event has arrived. You are here. The heat hits you immediately. Thousands of bodies packed together radiate warmth that rises up to the platform. You can smell sweat, fried food, the lingering scent of blood that never quite washes away from the rockcrete. The lumens are so bright you have to squint, and you realize this is deliberate. The executioners need clear visibility, and the shadows cast by your body need to be minimal for optimal viewing. Father Matthias approaches, his crimson robe stark against the dark platform. He carries a data slate and begins to read in his booming voice, amplified by the Vox system. Magnus Vrell, age 43 standard years, water reclamation technician 3rd class. You stand condemned of unauthorized theological inquiry, of questioning sacred mysteries beyond your station, of demonstrating dangerous curiosity regarding approved liturgical procedures, of potentially spreading ideological contamination through your inquiries. He pauses, and the silence is so complete you can hear your own breathing, ragged and too fast. Do you have final words? Do you wish to confess your crimes and beg the Emperor's mercy? Every eye is on you. 10,000 people waiting to hear what you'll say. This is your moment, your last chance to speak, to be heard, to exist as something other than a lesson. What do you say? Do you proclaim your innocence? Do you rage against the injustice? Do you beg for mercy that will never come? Do you curse the Imperium, go out defiant, at least deny them your compliance? Your mouth opens. You mean to say something profound, something that will be remembered, something that will make your death mean something. What comes out is, I just wanted to understand. 5 words, barely a whisper. The Vox system picks them up and broadcasts them across the square, and you hear your own voice echoing back at you from the walls. Plaintive, confused, hurt. I just wanted to understand. Father Matthias nods as if this is exactly what he expected. Understanding is the Emperor's domain, not yours. In seeking understanding, you overstepped. In overstepping, you fell. In falling, you became this. He gestures to the suspension frame behind you. The Emperor grants you this opportunity to redeem yourself through suffering. Embrace it. Let your pain sanctify you. Let your screams be prayers. Let your flaying be your final service to humanity. He steps back. The servitors move forward. They grip your arms, their augmetic strength making resistance impossible, and guide you to the frame. It's a simple construction. two vertical poles connected by a horizontal bar forming a T-shape. From the horizontal bar hang chains ending in suspension hooks. Your arms are lifted, stretched outward and upward, and the hooks are attached to the chains on your wrists. Your feet barely touch the ground, just your toes taking a fraction of your weight. The position is cruciform, arms spread, body exposed. Vulnerable, completely vulnerable. The servitors step back. The executioner approaches from behind. You can't see them, but you know they're there. You can hear the faint rustle of their robes, the barely audible sound of instruments being selected from their tray. Father Matthias raises his arms and the crowd settles into silence. Total silence. 10,000 people holding their collective breath. "Let the sentence be carried out," he intones. "May the Emperor have mercy upon this penitent soul." And then he says something else, something that doesn't register at first because your mind is fragmenting, desperately seeking escape, trying to flee from a body that's about to experience agony beyond comprehension. "Remove the robe." A servitor steps forward with mechanical efficiency and grips the gray fabric of your robe. One sharp pull and it tears away, designed for exactly this purpose, leaving you naked before 10,000 witnesses. The exposure is its own violation. Every instinct screams to cover yourself, but your arms are suspended, useless. You hang there, bare and helpless, while thousands of eyes observe your body. Not with lust or attraction or even disgust, just observation, clinical, detached. You're not a person to them, you're a specimen, a lesson, a thing that's about to be deconstructed for educational purposes. The executioner moves into your peripheral vision and you see they're holding something, a thin blade that catches the light, edge so sharp it seems to disappear into nothing. Monomolecular, a blade that can cut through flesh like it's smoke. They position themselves behind you and you feel pressure at your ankle. Not pain, not yet, just pressure, the blade touching skin. The frame is designed for efficiency. Someone whispers near you, another executioner perhaps, speaking to a trainee. Every part accessible, nothing wasted. The pressure at your ankle increases slightly. Your last coherent thought before everything becomes pain is absurd, random, desperately mundane. "I forgot to feed the cat." You don't have a cat, you've never had a cat, but your mind in its final moment of normalcy invents one. Gives you something to worry about, something normal, something that isn't this. Then the blade moves, and you learn what you're made of. Literally. There's a delay. A strange, impossible delay between the moment the blade moves and the moment your nervous system understands what's happened. It's measured in fractions of a second, neurons firing, signals traveling from your ankle to your spine to your brain, information being processed and interpreted. But in that microscopic gap you think, maybe this won't hurt as much as I feared. Maybe I can endure this. Then the pain arrives. It doesn't arrive as a sensation exactly. Calling it pain almost diminishes it, makes it sound manageable, understandable. Pain is what you feel when you stub your toe or burn your finger or pull a muscle. This is something categorically different. This is your entire nervous system screaming at once, every pain receptor in the affected area firing simultaneously, sending a signal so overwhelming that your brain simply cannot process it as discrete information. You scream. You don't decide to scream, you don't choose it. Your body does it automatically, bypassing conscious thought entirely. Somewhere deep in the limbic system, the primitive animal part of your brain that you share with every mammal that's ever lived, a survival program activates. Vocalize distress. Alert the pack, call for help. There is no help, but you scream anyway. The crowd's reaction is immediate and visceral. That low murmur becomes something else. Satisfaction, yes, but also validation. This is what they came for. This is the confirmation that their presence here matters, that this is real, that the lesson is being taught. Some of the children in the crowd start crying. Not from sympathy. They're too young to understand what sympathy means in this context, but because a human screaming triggers something primal in human young, a response that predates language or culture. Their parents shush them, hold them tighter, but don't leave. This is education. This is important. The executioner works with precision that's almost beautiful, if beauty could exist in something so monstrous. They begin at your ankle because this is optimal, extremities first, working inward, maximizing the surface area exposed before reaching regions where major blood vessels and vital organs make continued consciousness unlikely. The monomolecular blade slides beneath your skin with almost no resistance. You can feel it, not as cutting, but as a strange cold sensation, as if ice water is being poured under the surface of your flesh. The executioner works slowly, carefully, making an incision that circles your ankle completely. They're creating a boundary, a starting point. Then they grip the skin, you feel their gloved fingers pressing against you, and they pull. The skin separates from the underlying muscle and fascia with a sound. You can hear it. A wet, tearing sound like fabric ripping, but organic, visceral. It's a sound that shouldn't exist outside of a medici theater or a battlefield, and you're hearing it coming from your own body. And the pain escalates. What you felt before was just the blade. This is different. This is the largest organ of your body being systematically removed. Thousands of nerve endings being exposed to air that was never meant to touch them. Pain receptors designed to detect surface damage sending signals that translate roughly to everything is wrong, emergency, emergency, emergency. You scream again. You don't stop screaming. Your voice breaks, throat already raw, but sound keeps coming because you cannot make it stop. The executioner peels the skin up your calf, working with practiced efficiency. They separate connective tissue with small, precise cuts when needed, but mostly they just pull, and your skin comes away in a continuous sheet. You can see it now. You can actually see it, your own skin, still recognizably yours with the hair you've had all your life. The small scars you've accumulated, but now separate from you, held in the executioner's hands like a garment being removed. Underneath is muscle. Red, glistening muscle, the striations visible, the fibers that allow movement now exposed to air and light. Yellow fat deposits where your body stored energy. White fascia, the connective tissue that holds everything in place. And blood, not spurting, the executioner is too skilled for that, but seeping, trickling down in rivulets that the medical servitor quickly attends to, applying coagulant spray to prevent excessive blood loss. They need you alive. They need you conscious. The entire point is consciousness. The entire lesson requires that you experience this, that the crowd sees you experiencing this, that everyone understands what happens when you ask questions. Your mind is trying to escape. It's attempting every defensive mechanism humans have evolved to deal with trauma, dissociation, denial, psychological flight. You try to convince yourself this isn't real, that you'll wake up, that this is a nightmare. But the pain won't allow escape. The pain is too overwhelming, too immediate, too all-consuming. You find yourself thinking in strange fragments. Memories from childhood surface randomly. Your mother's face, a toy you had, the taste of actual fruit you ate once on a feast day. Your mind is showing you these things like a pickcaster playing in your head, desperate to focus on anything other than the present reality. But the present reality reasserts itself with every pull of your skin, every new area exposed, every fresh wave of agony. The executioner has reached your knee now, and the process slows. The knee is complicated, lots of connective tissue, tendons that need to be carefully separated. They work with intense concentration, and you realize with distant horror that they take pride in this. This is their craft. They've spent 40 years perfecting the technique of flaying humans alive, and they're demonstrating their mastery. Time becomes meaningless. Has it been 5 minutes? An hour? How long can this possibly last? How long before your body fails, before shock finally overwhelms your system and grants you the mercy of unconsciousness? But then the medical servitor moves closer, and you feel a sharp sting in your arm, different from the pain of the flaying, more localized, more familiar. An injection. Stimulants flooding your system, forcing your blood pressure to stabilize, keeping you conscious, keeping you present for your own destruction. No, you try to say, but your voice is gone, screamed into nothing. Only a croak emerges. No, please let me go, let me pass out, please. The The medical servitor doesn't respond. It's not programmed to respond. It has one function: maintain subject viability for duration of sentence. It will inject you with stimulants as many times as necessary to fulfill that function. The crowd watches. That's the important part. That's the entire purpose. Your suffering is the curriculum, and 10,000 students are learning. Most watch with that same detached curiosity they started with. This is interesting in the way any spectacle is interesting. Something to observe, something breaking the routine of their mundane lives. They'll talk about this over dinner. They'll mention it to their coworkers tomorrow. Did you see the flaying in Gamma 7? The one who questioned the tech priest? Yeah, I was there. Some of the zealots in the front rows have begun chanting prayers. They sway slightly, caught up in religious fervor, seeing your agony as holy, as sanctified, as a gift to the emperor. Their faces are rapturous. They genuinely believe they're witnessing something beautiful. Children react differently. Some are fascinated, too young to fully understand the horror, seeing only something unusual, something that captures attention. Others are crying, distressed by the sounds you're making, by the obvious wrongness of what's happening, even if they can't articulate why it's wrong. Their parents hold them, whisper to them, explain. They were bad. The emperor is fixing them. The Pitcaster operators zoom in and out, capturing different angles for broadcast. Your face fills screens across multiple districts, eyes wide, mouth open in a scream that no longer produces sound, skin slicked with sweat and tears, and probably other fluids you're not even aware of. Thousands who couldn't attend in person are watching from their hab units, from workstations, from public viewing screens. You are the lesson. Your body is the textbook. Your suffering is the knowledge being transmitted to millions. One person in the crowd vomits. An Arbeits officer immediately moves toward them, shock maul ready. This could be a sign of sympathy, of weakness, of insufficient dedication. But the person falls to their knees, shows obeisance, makes the sign of the Aquila. Forgive me, you see their mouth move, though you can't hear the words over the general murmur of the crowd. I am unworthy to witness this holy work. The Arbeits officer nods and withdraws. Acceptable response. Physical weakness is permissible, spiritual weakness is not. The executioner has finished your legs, both of them skin removed from ankle to hip, leaving your lower body a glistening mass of exposed muscle, fat, and fascia. You look down, you can't help but look down and see yourself deconstructed. See the muscles of your thighs, the same muscles that carried you through 43 years of life, now laid bare. The patella of your knees, white bone visible through thin tissue. The blood trickling continuously despite the coagulant spray. You're cold. That's the strange part. Despite the heat from the crowd, despite the lumens blazing down on you, you're shivering. Your body is losing heat through all that exposed tissue, temperature regulation completely compromised. You're shaking violently, teeth chattering, and each movement causes fresh waves of pain as exposed nerves are jostled. The executioner moves to your torso. This is the difficult part, the part that requires the most skill. Too deep and they'll puncture organs, cause internal bleeding, bring about a quick death. Too shallow and the skin won't separate cleanly. They work with intense focus, making a long incision from your hip to your armpit, then across your chest. The blade is so sharp you barely feel it, just that same strange cold sensation, almost pleasant compared to what follows. Then they start pulling. The skin of your torso comes away like a sheet being removed from a bed. You can feel every connection breaking, every blood vessel separating, every nerve ending shrieking. Your chest, your stomach, your sides, all of it peeled away, leaving your ribcage visible through the muscle, your organs separated from the outside world by only the thinnest layers of tissue. You can see your own breathing. Watch your chest cavity expand and contract, muscles moving, ribs shifting. You can see your own heartbeat, the muscle of your chest wall pulsing in rhythm with your heart beneath. You are watching yourself from the outside, seeing internal processes that should never be visible. Your mind fractures further. You find yourself thinking, this is fascinating. Look at how the serratus anterior muscle connects to the ribs. I never knew it looked like that. as if you're observing someone else's anatomy, as if this is educational, as if you're not experiencing agony beyond human capacity to endure. Dissociation, finally. Your mind's last defense. If it can't escape physically, it escapes psychologically. You become an observer of your own destruction. The executioner works steadily, efficiently. In their mind, because they are human, they do have a mind behind that mask. They're running through a checklist. Coagulation levels, acceptable. Subject vitals, stable. Time elapsed, 17 minutes. Projected remaining consciousness, potentially 20 to 30 minutes more. They're performing well. This is a good flaying by professional standards. Clean separation, minimal blood loss, subject remaining conscious well into the process. Their supervisor, watching from the side of the platform, will note this in their performance review. They don't hate you. They don't enjoy your suffering exactly. It's more complex than that. They've done this so many times that your individual humanity has become abstract. You're not Magnus Vrell, water reclamation technician with hopes and fears and people who loved you. You're subject 6743, another iteration of a process they've perfected over 4 decades. But they do take pride in their work. They're good at this, perhaps the best in this entire sector. And there's something almost meditative about the process. The careful cuts, the precise application of technique, the challenge of maximizing suffering duration while maintaining consciousness. It's a puzzle, and they're very skilled at solving it. They move to your arms now, starting at the wrists, peeling down toward your shoulders. Your fingers twitch involuntarily as nerves are exposed, causing your flayed hand to move in ways that look puppet-like, inhuman. The skin of your arms comes away more easily than your torso, less complicated anatomy, straightforward process. 23 minutes have elapsed. Subject is still conscious, still experiencing. Excellent progress. They save your face for last. This is traditional, and it's also strategic. The face contains the most nerve endings, produces the most extreme pain response, and is the most psychologically significant region. The crowd needs to see your face as long as possible, needs to see your expressions, needs to witness your suffering in its most recognizable form. The executioner stands before you now, and you see them clearly despite the tears and the sweat and the blood. They bring the blade to your hairline and begin the final cut. You feel the skin of your forehead separating, peeling down across your eyes. You're forced to close them, can't bear to see the blade that close, across your nose, your cheeks, your mouth. The executioner works with agonizing slowness here, making it last, giving the crowd time to fully process what they're witnessing. Your face comes away. You can feel it go, feel the weight of it being removed, and you think, that was me, that was my face. I had that face for 43 years. It was the face my mother recognized when I was born. It was the face my friends knew. It was me, and now it's gone. What remains is a skull covered in muscle and tissue, eyes in sockets, teeth exposed through lipless jaws. You are a thing now, not a person, an anatomical display, a lesson made flesh, or rather made fleshless. Somewhere in your fragmenting consciousness, a thought surfaces, a question. The irony would be funny if you were capable of humor anymore. Why won't I die? You asked one question 3 days ago and it led you here. Now you're asking another question, but this one has an answer, because the Imperium won't let you die. Not yet. Not until the lesson is complete. Not until every possible second of suffering has been extracted, every last particle of use has been squeezed from your dying body. Evolution designed the human body to survive, to fight, to endure, to cling to life even in the worst circumstances. Evolution gave you pain as a warning system. This is damaging you, avoid it, escape it, fix it. But evolution never prepared you for monomolecular flaying blades, never equipped you to survive systematic, professional, optimized torture. Your body's survival instincts, so useful across millions of years of human evolution, are now your enemy. They keep you alive, they keep you conscious, they keep you experiencing. The medical servitor administers another injection. Your heart rate stabilizes, your blood pressure normalizes. Your consciousness, which had been merciful fading, snaps back into sharp, terrible clarity. You are still here, still experiencing, still suffering. The executioner steps back, their work complete. You hang from the suspension frame, skin completely removed save for a few patches around your groin and feet where tissue removal might cause rapid death. You are red and white and yellow, muscle and bone and fat, everything that humans hide beneath their skin, now visible. The crowd is silent now. Even they are stunned by the completeness of the transformation. You were a person when you walked onto this platform. You are something else now. 37 minutes have elapsed since the first cut. You are still conscious. Your vision is fading, not from unconsciousness, but because the muscles around your eyes, no longer protected by eyelids, are drying out in the air. The world becomes blurry, indistinct. You can still hear the crowds murmur, Father Matthias intoning prayers, the servitors preparing for disposal. Your last clear thought is not profound. It's not philosophical. It's simple, animal, desperate. Please, please let it end. And finally, mercifully, your body reaches its limit. Shock overwhelms the stimulants. Your heart, strained beyond endurance, begins to fail. Your nervous system, flooded with pain signals for too long, starts shutting down. The world fades to gray. The sounds become distant. The pain, which has been your entire universe for the last 40 minutes, begins to recede, not because the pain is stopping, but because you are.